My name is Bryan Bunselmeyer. I'm the Executive Director of TAPS, and I'm joined today by the newest TAPS staff member, Steve Hohulin. So we're here to talk about today's topic, game administrators. Steve, tell us a little bit, since your recent role at Temple Christian and your almost 4 decades of TAPS experience, tell us a little bit about why it's important to have a game administrator.
Well, I think the big thing is, an athletic director, you want to make sure that the environment that you provide is safe and it's positive. You want to have your school make a good reflection to whoever is there, but then obviously safety is going to be very important as well.
I think it's something that we all want to do, but sometimes it's a little hard to find that person that's going to come be there all night for a basketball setup, or especially if you're doing JV and junior high football, somebody that's going to be there for 4 or 5 hours. It is an important thing. We need it at all varsity home games. That's required by the TAPS rule, whether it's a non-district or a district game or really even a tournament game. But what do you think about sub-varsity and junior high? What's the importance there, or do you see it as important?
I think it's critical. It is not required by TAPS to have people at your sub-varsity games, but although your varsity games are going to be more intense, sometimes parents and fans and players can get intense and things can get a little bit out of hand in a sub-varsity game. So TAPS highly recommends that all games are covered by a home administrator.
When we get to district games and playoffs, they're a little ways down the road since we're second week of August here, but what's the importance of the visiting team bringing a game administrator as well as the home team? When you were the visiting team, how does that change a little bit from being the home administrator?
I think because it's a district game, because of the importance of district game, it's important that you have a home, you wouldn't call him a home administrator, but an administrator to represent the visitors and take care of any problems on the visiting side.
Sometimes it's a little easier when somebody that knows you comes up and says, hey, we need to back off a little bit, than just somebody from the other team, which I've been there. It can be a little adversarial and a little competitive at that point. So I think having it at the district and playoff level especially, and if you make the Final Four, we definitely need to have one from each school there. So I think that's very important. One of the most overlooked things in my years of doing this, the game administrator is responsible for an awful lot inside the gym or at the field or on the track, but health and safety is often overlooked. What are a couple of the important things from the health and safety aspect that you expect, or that we should expect as TAPS from a game administrator?
Well, 2 things off the top of my head. Number 1, you should really understand your emergency plan, whether it's for weather, whether it's, unfortunately in this day and age for some type of emergency. You, as the home administrator, you really need to understand your emergency plan and how to put it into play. Second thing, at all TAPS events, you are required to have an AED on site. Make sure that the home administrator knows where that is. Make sure the home administrator is trained in how to use that AED.
I think the important thing about the AED too is you may not need it on a coach or player, but that doesn't mean a spectator in the stands might not need it. But we talk about emergency action plans. We do require schools to have an emergency action plan, but that also includes every facility. So the football stadium, what happens when it's lightning, that kind of makes sense. And I think a lot of people have a plan for that. But what do you do if the lights go out in the gym, or what do you do if the lights go out the football field? You've had that happen recently. I think those are the important things, because health and safety does come into that well. Trying to find your way back to the car in the dark may result in a sprained ankle or worse. So health and safety, it's important. Make sure you're there. As we look at officials, we can't do very many contests without game officials, and there's always 3 teams on the court or on the field. There's the home team, the visiting team, and the officials team. It seems like it's always 2-on-1. The home and the visiting team are against the team of officials. But to that point, what do you expect of a game administrator when it comes to the officials and the officials crew when they're on site?
Well, I think the game officials, they need to have somebody that they can go to anytime there's any kind of problem. As the home team administrator, number 1, you need to greet the officials. You need to be there when they arrive. You need to show them where they can dress. You need to visit with them about any specifics of your gym, any problems that you might anticipate, and then you need to tell them where you will be located during the game. If they need to get a hold of you, they shouldn't have to find you. They should know exactly where you are so they can go straight to you. If they're having a problem with fans, a problem with the facility, any of those kind of things, they should be able to locate you immediately.
I think that's one of the reasons why in our game administrator rules we say you can be a coach or you're a principal or whatever, but you can't be a coach that's active in that contest. It's kind of hard to leave the sidelines to go take care of an unruly fan. So we always look for that second person. You're the eyes and ears of the facility when it comes to the officials. So treat the officials right. They're the third team. They're our team, and we appreciate that. So when you look at a meeting folks and greeting people, what do you expect as a game administrator, or what did you expect from a visiting coach when you showed up on site? I think it's always good when you met the game administrator. What are kind of the things that you need to be able to tell the visiting team, or what would you expect to be told when you get there?
Well, obviously, you need to show the visiting team where they're going to be able to dress, where they can go at halftime. Once again, identify yourself as the game administrator, because they may have issues that they want to talk to you about. But you need to be available, you need to be visible, you need to be active. If you're a teacher, this probably isn't the time to go grade papers. You need to be actively engaged in watching what's going on during the game and just ready to step in anytime there's some type of problem.
So when we get to district play, a lot of times the fans have already been there once before. They might have been there for volleyball and now it's basketball. But really, as the game administrator and the visiting fans, what you're working to do is provide a positive culture and a positive atmosphere. So being seen and being known as somebody in charge, I think that's the key thing towards the visiting fans. You don't have to greet everybody and shake their hand, but they need to know who's in charge. And then we have the auxiliary groups, the cheerleaders or the drum line or the dance team or the band in football. What do you feel like the game administrator needs to do for those groups? Because they are school groups when they come on your campus, and a lot of times they may or may not know where to go or what to do. What do you feel like is important to tell the band director or the cheer director when they get there?
Once again, obviously, they need to know where they can park their things, where they can put their equipment, when they can perform at halftime. There may be certain specifics about your facility that they need to be aware of. But just once again, making them feel welcome, making them feel at home, and then letting them know where they can put their equipment, where they can set up, and when during halftime they're going to be able to perform.
I think at football it's really important, that timeline. We each get half of halftime. And so to make sure everybody's on the right page. And sometimes I think one of the biggest things on the cheerleaders and the dance teams especially is if they're going to use a CD or an iPhone to play, making sure either you walk them up or you direct them to the press box so that they actually know where to go test that out. Nothing like having somebody try to test out their iPhone several times while they're all in the ready position. So you can help do that. As we look, there are several things that are going to occur during the game, some of which might need to be reported. What's kind of an example of a couple of things that as the game administrator, you'd want to make sure that you report to your school administration or to TAPS?
Well, I think it's really important. If you see any type of verbal abuse or obviously physical abuse, whether it's towards officials, whether it's between players, whether it's among the fans, number one, report that to your school administrator. They're going to want to know. I know this, my head of school never wanted to get a surprise phone call in the morning. I don't care how late it is. He wanted to hear get that call from me. So notify your school administrator. It also is probably good to notify the opposing school administrator to let them know, hey, we had a problem at the game last night. Once again, school administrators don't want surprises. They want a heads up. If there was any type of ejection that occurred during the game, whether it's a fan was asked to leave, a player got ejected from the game, or a coach got thrown from the game, obviously, number one, report that to your school administrator. But TAPS also requires the officials and both teams to report that to TAPS within 24 hours. You can find that ejection form on our TAPS website
I'll give it to you easy. It's www.taps.biz. You can also find it in your toolkit of Rank 1. Make sure we go to the toolkit of Rank 1. I will say this too on your reports. The athletic director needs to know of anything that went good or bad. Sometimes we only think about the bad, but if you see something that's really good, especially with social media like it is right now, it may already be out there, but that's also something good to say, hey, our fans did a really good thing. I will also say, back on that health and safety front, if you do have a major injury, or if you, we don't ever want that, but if it occurs, make sure everybody knows. Make sure you get that report. It's kind of like back in my previous history. If you have a slip and fall in the grocery store, they're going to walk up and make you fill out a form. So if you have an incident report form for your school or your facility, make sure that you're a part of that too. So Again, game administrators, it's a huge part of what we do as TAPS. We're game administrators every time we host an event. We need your help at the local level to make sure the contest runs smooth. Steve, glad to have you on board, and thanks for joining us here today about game administrators.